The day Sundar Pichai remembered his village, Narendra Modi called it real pride. The hall was full of people, their eyes fixed on the stage where Sundar Pichai stood. Cameras flashed, lights glowed, and silence filled the air as everyone waited for him to speak. He held the microphone, but for a moment he did not say a word. His eyes were not on the crowd in front of him, but far away, lost in memory. It was as if he had traveled back in time, back to the dusty roads of a small Indian village. People in the audience leaned forward, curious. They expected words about technology, about success, about the future of India in the digital age. But Sundar's first words were soft, almost trembling, and they carried a weight that no one expected. "Before I stand here as the CEO of Google," he said, "I must remember the boy I once was, walking barefoot to school, holding a bag with only one notebook inside." The crowd did not move. The hall became even quieter. Sundar's voice grew steady as he told them how his father, an ordinary man working long hours, taught him the value of honesty and respect, how his mother, with gentle words, taught him patience and humility, and how the village itself, with its struggles and its strength, shaped the boy who would one day lead one of the world's biggest companies. He spoke of evenings when the electricity would go out, and he would study under the dim light of a kerosene lamp. He spoke of days when his father could not afford to buy him new clothes, yet reminded him that true success was not in what one wears, but in what one learns and gives back. The audience listened, many of them with tears in their eyes, because the story was not about a CEO anymore. It was about a boy, about resilience, about the dreams born in a small corner of India. Sundar paused and looked around. "I stand here today," he said, "because I never forgot where I came from. The soil of my village, the hands of my parents, the lessons of kindness, and the strength of patience. All of it is still inside me." At that moment, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was seated in the front row, raised his eyes and studied Sundar with respect. The Prime Minister had listened to many speeches, but this one was different. It was not about power or ambition. It was about roots, values, and pride. Modi leaned toward his aide and whispered, "This is the real pride of India. Not the title he holds, but the heart he carries." The cameras captured Sundar's calm face, but inside his heart was heavy. He remembered one day in his childhood when he had failed in a school test and thought he would disappoint his parents. He had walked home slowly, afraid to tell them. But when his father saw his tears, he did not scold him. Instead, he placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Failure is not the end, son. It is only a step that teaches you how to rise again." Sundar's eyes filled with emotion as he shared this memory with the hall. The suspense grew because the audience was now not only hearing a story, they were living inside it. They felt the dust on that village road, they felt the sting of failure, and they felt the warmth of a father's gentle words. Then Sundar said something that surprised everyone. "The biggest moment of my life," he confessed, "was not the day I became CEO. It was the day my father told me that respect and humility are bigger than any success. I never forgot that. And today, I want to remind every child in India that your roots are your strength, and your dreams can rise from even the smallest place." The hall erupted with applause, but Sundar lowered his head humbly. For him, it was not about applause. It was about telling the truth of his journey, a journey that belonged not only to him, but to every child who dared to dream in silence. Prime Minister Modi stood up. The audience gasped because it was rare for him to rise in the middle of a speech. He looked at Sundar and spoke with a firm voice. "Today, the world sees you as a leader of technology, but India sees you as a son who never forgot his soil. This is the real pride of our nation." The hall thundered with claps. Sundar's eyes grew moist. He had spoken from his heart, and in that moment, the Prime Minister's words touched him deeply. The story of his village, his parents, and his struggles had turned into something bigger. It had become a symbol of what India could achieve with respect, resilience, and kindness. As the crowd kept clapping, Sundar closed his eyes for a brief second. He saw his father's tired face, his mother's gentle smile, and the dusty road of his village, and he whispered to himself, "This is where it all began." And with that, part one of his story came to an end. The day Sundar Pichai remembered his village, Narendra Modi called it real pride. The applause in the hall slowly faded, but the silence that followed was even more powerful. Sundar stood still, his eyes lowered, and the Prime Minister's words kept echoing inside him. Real pride, Modi had said. Those two words did not feel like praise. They felt like responsibility. Sundar knew that carrying pride of a nation was not easy. It was heavy, and sometimes it demanded more than one could give. After the event ended, Sundar walked quietly to the waiting room. The room was empty, but his heart was full of memories. He sat down, and suddenly, the sound of claps from minutes ago disappeared. Instead, he could hear the distant voice of his mother calling him home from the fields. He could hear the bark of stray dogs on the village road. He could hear the laughter of children running with sticks and old tires, making games out of nothing. Yet hidden inside those memories was also the sound of struggle. He remembered the nights when his father sat in the dark, worried about bills, speaking softly so the children would not hear. He remembered his mother skipping meals, saying she was not hungry, though Sundar later realized she had given her portion to the children. These were not only memories, they were reminders of sacrifices, small and silent, but greater than anything he had achieved later. Just then, the door opened, and Narendra Modi walked in. Sundar quickly stood up, surprised, but Modi raised a hand gently, asking him to sit. The Prime Minister's eyes were calm, yet sharp. "Sundar," he said softly, "you spoke about your village today, and you spoke with truth. Do you know why people listened with such silence?" Sundar shook his head. Modi leaned closer. "Because they did not see the CEO. They saw the boy who grew through struggle. And when people see honesty, they cannot turn away." Sundar felt a weight in his chest. He whispered, "Sometimes I fear I will forget who I was. The world pulls you. It asks for speed, for results, for power. And in that rush, the boy from the village begins to fade." Modi looked at him firmly. "Then never allow it. Real pride is not in forgetting struggle, it is in carrying it with you. India does not need stories of victory only, it needs stories of resilience. Your life is not yours alone anymore. It belongs to every child who thinks his small house is too small for big dreams." Sundar's eyes grew wet, but he quickly turned away. He did not want to show weakness. Yet Modi's words cut deep because Sundar knew they were true. Success had given him many things, but it also carried the danger of distance, from his roots, from his people, from his own truth. As he left the building that night, the city lights sparkled, but they did not comfort him. Instead, he kept thinking of his father's tired feet walking home after work, dust covering his sandals, sweat on his forehead, yet still smiling as he asked Sundar about his school day. And then Sundar remembered something that made his chest tighten. Years ago, when he was just a boy, there had been a day when he wanted to quit school. The reason was small, yet heavy for a child. He had been mocked by other children because he wore old shoes that were torn at the sides. He had come home crying, throwing the shoes in the corner, saying he would not go back. His father had picked up the shoes, looked at them, and then placed them back in front of Sundar. "These shoes are not broken," his father said. "They are strong, because they carried you to school every day. Never be ashamed of what carries you forward." That night, Sundar could not sleep. He lay awake in his hotel room, staring at the ceiling. He kept asking himself, had he remembered that lesson in his life? Or had he sometimes let the shine of success cover the strength of struggle? Suddenly, his phone rang. It was his mother. Her voice was soft, filled with warmth. "I saw you on the news," she said. "You spoke from the heart. Your father would have been proud." Sundar closed his eyes, holding back tears. "Amma," he whispered, "do you think I am still the same boy? Or have I changed too much?" His mother paused for a moment, then said gently, "You are still that boy, Sundar, but you must visit the soil again. The soil will remind you of who you are." The next morning, without telling many people, Sundar made a decision. He would return to his village, quietly, without cameras, without speeches. He needed to walk on that soil again. He needed to see the old roads, the small school, the narrow lanes. He needed to meet the children there and tell them that dreams do not need big shoes. They only need strong steps. But what he did not know was that this journey back home would not only remind him of his roots, it would also reveal truths he had never faced before. Truths about sacrifice, about respect, and about the hidden strength of kindness that could change the way he saw life forever. The flight to Chennai was short, but Sundar felt every minute stretching like hours. He sat by the window, staring at the endless sky, yet his mind was not in the clouds. It was far below, in the dusty lanes of his childhood village. His heart beat faster than usual, not because he was nervous about meeting people, but because he was afraid of what he might feel when he stepped back onto that soil after so many years. When the car finally left the city and entered the rural roads, Sundar lowered the window glass. Warm air brushed against his face, carrying the smell of earth, fields, and wood smoke from small huts. With every passing mile, his memories grew sharper. He saw children walking barefoot to school, just like he once did. He saw farmers bent under the sun, just like his father had once been. The closer he got, the heavier his chest became. Finally, the car stopped near the entrance of the village. Sundar stepped out slowly. The road was narrow, lined with small houses made of brick and mud, their walls colored by time. An old woman sitting by the roadside looked up, her eyes widening as she recognized him. She whispered his name, almost in disbelief. Soon others gathered, children running, men and women stepping out of their homes, all staring with joy and wonder. But Sundar did not raise his hands like a celebrity greeting fans. Instead, he bent down, touched the soil with his fingers and held it to his forehead. The crowd went silent. For them, it was not the CEO of Google who had returned, it was the boy who had once walked among them. An old man came forward. His voice trembled. "Sundar, do you remember me? I was your teacher in the small school by the banyan tree." Sundar's eyes filled with tears as he folded his hands in respect. "Sir, I remember every word you spoke. I remember how you said knowledge is the only thing no one can steal. You planted that seed in me." The teacher's eyes grew moist. "And you carried that seed to the world. Today, our village stands taller because of you." But Sundar shook his head softly. "No, teacher. I stand taller because of you, because of this soil, because of every hand that shaped me." The crowd clapped, but Sundar's heart grew heavier. He wanted to see the old school, so he walked with the villagers. When he entered the broken classroom, his chest tightened. The wooden benches were old, the walls cracked, and the blackboard was faint. Yet the smell of chalk dust and the sound of children's laughter still lived in that space. He sat on one of the benches, closed his eyes, and felt like a small boy again, holding a notebook with trembling hands. Suddenly, one of the villagers spoke. "Do you know, Sundar, what your father once did for the school?" Sundar looked up confused. "What do you mean?" The man stepped forward. Many years ago, when the school did not have enough money for books, your father sold his own old cycle to buy books for the children. He did not want anyone to know, but we all saw it. He said education is not only for his son, it is for every child here. Sundar froze. His father had never told him this. His throat tightened, and he struggled to speak. He never said a word. He never told me. The teacher nodded. He did many such things silently. Once, when the roof of the classroom leaked during rain, he spent nights repairing it himself. He believed every child deserved a dry place to learn. Tears rolled down Sundar's face. He had always known his father worked hard, but he had not known the depth of his sacrifices for others. In that moment, he realized that the respect and humility his father spoke of were not only words, they were actions lived in silence. The suspense grew heavier. Sundar whispered, "How many more things have I not known?" The villagers looked at him kindly, but no one answered. Instead, a small boy stepped forward, barefoot, holding a torn notebook. He looked at Sundar shyly and said, "Sir, I want to study like you, but sometimes I feel it is too hard." Sundar knelt down, looking into the boy's eyes. "Never think it is too hard. Your steps may be small, your shoes may be torn, but every step you take is strength. Do not be ashamed of where you begin. The world respects those who walk with courage." The boy smiled, but Sundar's heart remained restless. The pride of the village was not only in him, it was in every child struggling, every parent sacrificing, every teacher giving without asking. That night, Sundar sat outside under the stars, listening to the sound of crickets and the rustle of trees. He thought about his father's silent sacrifices, his mother's gentle wisdom, and the Prime Minister's words, real pride. He realized now that pride was not about success in front of cameras. It was about unseen acts of kindness, about respect carried in silence, about resilience that does not boast. But Sundar did not know that the next day would bring him face to face with a story hidden even deeper, a story connected to his mother, a story that would shake him even more than his father's sacrifices. The morning sun rose slowly over the fields, painting the village in soft golden light. Sundar sat on the veranda of his old home, sipping tea his mother had made. The steam rose gently, carrying with it a smell that reminded him of childhood mornings, when his mother would wake him before school. He looked at her now, her face older, lined with years of sacrifice, yet her eyes still held the same calm strength. After a moment of silence, his mother spoke softly. "You went to the school yesterday. The villagers told you about your father." Sundar nodded, his throat tightening. "Amma, I never knew he sold his cycle. I never knew he repaired the roof with his own hands." His mother smiled faintly. "Your father was like the soil. He gave quietly. He never asked for thanks. He believed every seed deserved a chance to grow." Sundar lowered his head. "I feel ashamed I did not know." His mother placed her hand on his. "You were a child, Sundar. You were meant to dream, not to carry the weight of our struggles. But there is something else I must tell you now. Something I never told you before." Her voice trembled slightly, and Sundar looked up, surprised. "What is it, Amma?" She sighed, her eyes drifting to the far horizon. "Do you remember the day you wanted to leave school? You cried because other boys laughed at your torn shoes. Your father gave you courage, but there was more behind it. That morning, before he spoke to you, he had told me something. He said, 'If needed, I will go hungry. I will walk miles without food, but I will never allow Sundar to stop studying.'" Sundar's heart clenched. "Amma, you went hungry?" Her eyes grew moist, but she kept her voice calm. Many times. There were days when food was not enough. We would keep only one portion for you and your brother. Your father and I managed with water, sometimes just rice with salt. We told you we were not hungry, but it was not true. We gave our hunger to God, and we gave the food to you. Sundar covered his face with his hands. His breath grew heavy, and tears slipped through his fingers. Amma, I never knew. Why did you never tell me? She touched his shoulder gently. Because a mother's hunger is not important. A child's dream is more important. We wanted you to walk forward without looking back at our struggles. If you had known, maybe you would have stopped. And we did not want you to stop. The silence that followed was thick with emotion. Sundar felt as if his heart was breaking and healing at the same time. Every success, every step of his journey was built on the invisible sacrifices of his parents. He whispered, Amma, you and Appa gave up so much. What can I ever give back to you? His mother shook her head. You do not need to give back to us. You must give forward. Give to those who struggle now, like you once did. Help the children who carry torn shoes. Help the mothers who hide their hunger. Help the fathers who sell what little they have for education. That will be your true pride. Her words struck him deeply. He realized then that humility was not about speaking softly. It was about carrying the weight of others, lifting them when they could not lift themselves. Later that day, Sundar walked through the village again. He looked at the small children running, their laughter echoing in the air. He looked at the farmers bending under the sun, wiping sweat from their brows. He looked at the old women carrying bundles of firewood, their backs bent, yet their eyes steady. Every face reminded him of resilience. Every gesture reminded him of silent strength. He decided he would not leave this visit as just a memory. He would act. He would bring something back to the village, not as a gift of money, but as a bridge of opportunity. But before he could even share his plan, another surprise awaited him, something he had never imagined. That evening, as he prepared to meet the villagers again, a letter was placed in his hand. It was old, the paper yellowed, the ink faded. His mother said quietly, "This was written by your father before he passed. He wanted you to read it one day, when you were ready." Sundar stared at the letter, his hands trembling. He had never known such a letter existed. His heart pounded as he unfolded the fragile paper. Inside were words that would change everything he thought he knew about his father and about himself. The letter shook in Sundar's trembling hands. The paper was fragile and the edges had turned brown with age, but the handwriting was clear. He recognized it at once. It was his father's. His breath caught in his throat as he began to read. "My dear son, if you are reading this, it means you have grown into the man I always hoped you would be. I may not be with you when you open these words, but I want you to know that I lived every day for you and your brother. I did not dream for myself. I dreamed for you. I dreamed that you would go farther than I ever could, that you would rise without forgetting the soil beneath your feet." Sundar stopped for a moment, his vision blurred by tears. He pressed the letter to his chest, his heart pounding with pain and love. He continued reading slowly, every word carving into his soul. Never measure success by the size of a house or the shine of wealth. Measure it by the respect you give to others and the kindness you show in silence. You may become great in the eyes of the world, but remember, true greatness is when even the smallest child feels safe to come to you. The words pulled Sundar back in time. He remembered the evenings when his father would return home, sweat covering his body, hands rough from work, yet still smiling, still asking about his school, still telling him never to lose hope. He read on. "If ever you forget who you are, return to this village. Sit under the banyan tree, Listen to the wind through the fields, and you will remember. The soil never forgets, and it will remind you of who you are. Sundar could not hold back any more. Tears rolled down his face, falling onto the paper, blurring the ink. His mother placed her hand on his shoulder. She said softly, "He wrote that the year you left for college. He kept it safe, waiting for the right time. He wanted you to carry his voice with you always." Sundar whispered, "Appa, I wish you could see this day. I wish you could see what your sacrifices created." His mother smiled sadly. "He sees, Sundar. He always sees." That night, Sundar sat alone under the banyan tree near the school, holding the letter tightly. The moonlight shone faintly on the old paper. He closed his eyes and imagined his father sitting beside him, speaking those same words. It was as if time had folded, as if the boy inside him was sitting with the man he had become. In that moment, Sundar realized something that shook him. All his achievements, the titles, the recognition, the power, were built not only on his dreams, but on sacrifices made in silence by those who never asked for reward. His father's hunger, his mother's strength, his teacher's patience, his village's hope, they were all part of his success. He whispered to himself, "True pride is not mine alone. It belongs to all of them." The next morning, he called the villagers together under the banyan tree. They gathered eagerly, children sitting cross-legged on the ground, elders leaning on their walking sticks, mothers carrying babies in their arms. Sundar stood before them, holding the letter. "Yesterday I learned something I never knew," he began. "My father gave silently for this village. My mother sacrificed so I could study. And today I understand what real pride means. It is not about being a CEO. It is about remembering where we come from and lifting those who are still walking the path we once walked." The crowd listened in silence. Sundar looked at the children, their eyes shining with curiosity. "I want every child here to dream without fear. I want no boy or girl to think their torn shoes will stop them. I want no mother to go hungry because she cannot feed her child. I want no father to sell what little he has for education. Together, we will change this." An old farmer raised his voice. "But how, Sundar? How can we change when life has been the same for generations?" Sundar smiled gently, his eyes calm but determined. "We begin with small steps. We begin with respect. We begin with humility. I will bring resources, I will bring opportunities, but what will truly change this village is your kindness to each other. When one child struggles, the whole village must lift him. When one family is hungry, the others must share. This is how resilience becomes strength." The villagers clapped, some with tears in their eyes. They had always known struggle, but now, for the first time, they felt hope that their struggles could turn into stories of success. But as Sundar spoke, a voice from the back called out. It was a woman, her face thin, her eyes tired. She said, "Sundar, we are proud of you, but do not forget, there are many villages like ours, many mothers like your Amma, many fathers like your Appa. Will you remember them too?" The question struck Sundar deeply. He realized that his responsibility was larger than he thought. It was not only about one village, it was about all of India, about all those unseen faces who carried silent strength every day. That night, Sundar lay awake again, staring at the ceiling. The letter rested on the table beside him, the ink still blurred by his tears. He thought of the Prime Minister's words, real pride. And now he understood. Real pride was not in being celebrated by the world. Real pride was in lifting the world around you, quietly, humbly, kindly. But he also knew that his journey was far from over. The challenges ahead would not be small. And the next test of his heart was waiting, one that would bring him face to face with a truth he had never imagined about his own family. The next day dawned quiet, but Sundar felt a heaviness in the air. It was as if the soil itself was preparing to reveal something he had not yet seen. He thought the letter from his father had told him everything, but life always carries truths hidden in corners we forget to look at. His mother sat with him after breakfast. Her face looked calm, but her eyes were distant, as if she was carrying words she had long kept locked inside. Finally, she spoke. "Sundar, there is something more you must know. Something even your father never told you directly." Sundar turned to her, confused. "Amma, what do you mean?" She sighed, her hands trembling slightly as she folded her sari. "Do you remember your school fee when you first went to the city? You thought your father paid it with his savings, but the truth is, he did not have enough. He borrowed the money quietly. He worked extra hours to repay it, and when that was still not enough, I did something I never wanted you to know." Sundar's heart pounded. "What did you do, Amma?" Her voice lowered. "I sold the only gold bangle my mother had given me when I was married. It was the only ornament I owned. I told everyone I misplaced it, but in truth, I gave it away so you could study. I carried that emptiness for years, but I never regretted it, because every time I saw you rise, I felt my mother's blessing through you." Sundar froze. His eyes burned with tears. "Amma, you gave away your last memory, your last gift for me." She smiled softly, though her eyes glistened. "A mother does not count such things. She only counts the steps her child takes forward." Sundar covered his face, unable to speak. The sacrifices were deeper than he had ever imagined. His father giving his cycle, his mother giving her only bangle, both giving their hunger. His success was not his alone. It was stitched together with threads of sacrifice, threads that shone brighter than any achievement. Later that afternoon, as Sundar walked again through the village, an elder approached him. "Your parents gave everything for you, Sundar. But do you know something else? They also gave to others. When a widow could not afford food, your mother shared rice from your own house. When a farmer's child could not buy books, your father brought him one from the city. They never told anyone, but we all saw it. Their kindness lived quietly." Sundar felt his heart swell and ache at the same time. Humility was not only in their words, it was in their life. They had lived for others, even when they themselves had little. That evening, Sundar sat with the villagers under the banyan tree again. The children's voices filled the air, their laughter innocent and free. Sundar watched them and thought of his parents' words, his father's letter, his mother's hidden sacrifice, and suddenly he realized something. His story was not only about remembering the past, it was about shaping the future. He stood before the people and spoke from his heart. "All my life, I thought success was reaching the highest places, but today, I understand it is also about lifting others so they too can rise. My parents showed me that kindness is the strongest foundation, and I promise you, I will carry that forward. This village will not be forgotten. No child here will be left behind. No mother here will carry hunger in silence." The villagers clapped, but Sundar noticed something different in their eyes. It was not only pride, it was trust. Trust that his words were not empty, that he would truly bring change. As the night fell, Sundar looked up at the stars. He remembered the Prime Minister's words. Real pride. He thought of his father's letter, his mother's sacrifice, the villagers' struggles, and he understood more deeply than ever before. Pride is not in what you hold, but in what you give. Yet even as he felt this truth, life was preparing one final moment, one final test. Something unexpected was waiting, a twist that would force Sundar to look at himself in a way he never had before. The final morning of Sundar's visit arrived. The sun rose gently, The fields glowed, and the village moved with its slow rhythm. Sundar knew he would soon have to return to the world that waited for him, the meetings, the decisions, the endless pace of modern life. But before leaving, his heart told him there was still something unfinished, something waiting in silence. His mother called him inside one last time. She held out a small wooden box, worn and old, its corners chipped from years of use. "This was your father's," she said softly. "He wanted you to have it when the time was right." Sundar opened the box with care. Inside were a few small items: a broken watch with its glass cracked, a rusted pen, and a folded piece of paper. The sight of these simple things made his throat tighten. They were not valuable to the world, but to Sundar, they were treasures beyond measure. He unfolded the paper. It was another message from his father, shorter than the first, but even more powerful. "My son, I may not give you wealth, but I give you something greater. I give you the strength of struggle, the value of respect, the light of humility, and the power of kindness. Carry these with you, and you will never be poor. Never forget, true pride is not in being above others, but in walking with them, side by side." Sundar's eyes blurred again, but this time the tears carried peace as much as pain. He finally understood. His father had not left him empty-handed. He had left him rich in values, in lessons, in love. That afternoon, before leaving the village, Sundar called everyone together once more. He stood before them under the banyan tree, the place where so many memories lived. The crowd was larger this time. Not just villagers, but people from nearby towns had come. They had all heard the story of his return, and they wanted to see the boy who had never forgotten his roots. Sundar raised his voice, steady and clear. "I came back to remember who I was. But what I found here is more than memory. It is truth. My parents gave silently. My village gave silently. And all of you carry the same strength. From this day forward, I promise to build schools here, to bring opportunities here, to make sure no child feels education is too far away. I promise that no mother will have to hide her hunger, no father will have to give up his dreams for his child's future. Together, we will make this soil bloom again." The crowd erupted with applause, but Sundar did not raise his hands in pride. Instead, he folded them humbly, bowing to his people. And then, in that very moment, Narendra Modi arrived unexpectedly. News had reached him of Sundar's quiet visit, and he wanted to witness it himself. The villagers gasped and quickly made space. Modi stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Sundar. "You did not come here with cameras. You did not come here for fame," Modi said firmly. "You came here to bow to your soil, to honor the sacrifices that made you. And that, Sundar, is the real pride of India." The words struck like thunder in the hearts of the people. Many wept openly, not out of sadness, but out of the deep power of that truth. Sundar turned to the children sitting at the front, their eyes wide with hope. He smiled gently and said, "Never believe your dreams are too big. If I could walk from this soil to the world, so can you. Respect your parents, hold kindness in your heart, and never be ashamed of where you begin. Your beginning is your strength." As the sun set that evening, Sundar looked around one last time. He saw the banyan tree, the cracked walls of the school, the tired but hopeful faces of his people. He felt the letter in his pocket, his father's voice in his heart, his mother's strength in his soul. He whispered quietly to himself, "This is my true success. This is my real pride." And with that, Sundar left the village. But the village did not leave him. Its soil lived in his steps, its strength lived in his heart, and its spirit became part of every decision he made in the world that waited for him.